Hi, friends. It's Deanna Williston with our Blooming Catholic Life, and I'm back. You can see I'm a little different. Can you see? I'm wearing an actual poncho. Why did I go with a poncho? We'll call it a prayer poncho. Because sometimes we may need something a little bit more to help us distance ourselves from the chaos of our life. I was talking with a friend about that, and she was saying how it's so hard for her just to sit down and do Lectio. Just that it's so distracting. She tries to sit down and do it, but the world calls to her, all those chores, all those things. So you may need a full-on prayer poncho. I think you've seen before where I've actually worn a hoodie and pulled the hood up. Whatever you need to do. You may have a very lovely little prayer corner in your house that has all kinds of prayer cards and your favorite statues, which are beautiful. And there are times when you may just sit and contemplate one of the statues, or you may just sit and contemplate like the San Damiano cross, one of the icons that you have there. But there are times when you're just too distracted, and maybe what you need is a nice little grotto outside where it's just stones and a statue of Mary and like nothing else. Or it could even be a little desert garden. You could probably do a little shadow box, fill it with sand, and add just a cross, and that'd be it. Just nothing else to look at, just that. Like, what could you do? Where could you set it up that is just quiet? It's just you and the Lord, that you're not tempted to go off and do any things. That's why the grotto is nice, because the grotto is like a wall of stone, and it comes to like a corner. It surrounds you, and you're just focused on that. And whatever statue, even it could be a statue of Jesus, if you're a former Protestant and you're not really good with Jesus through Mary yet. If that concept is still alien to you or a stumbling block, sure, put a statue of Jesus or a crucifix or a cross there, but have it be more plain. Perhaps that's why for a while, I know definitely in Protestants, but some Catholics too, got to the point where they were doing those stained wooden backgrounds. It started out with like crates and boxes, and then it was like rustic barnwood. And it was plain like that for a little bit, right? And then they started hanging these little lights, like party lights. And then other images started creeping up on the walls. It's so easy to creep and do that because when you're worshiping God, it is great to have those other things to focus on. You can be all those things to catch your attention. You could be praying 1 minute. You can literally sit there in the church and do the Stations of the Cross using the images. And then you may look up and see a statue of Mary and fall and contemplate the incarnation. And then you may see a different statue. Maybe you see St. Francis and you long to be in those lonely moments. And it just transports you up to Mount Verna. And you're praying with St. Francis. You're seeing the stigmata with him. You're imagining all of that, right? Or maybe you're staring at the tabernacle or a beautiful monstrance. And the imagery there is helping you go deeper into prayer. Well, when you're doing Lectio Divina, the word is what you're focused on. So you may need something plain to surround your sights. You may need to find a little corner of the basement or something low and humble that's not going to be drawing your eye. And that's one of the reasons, like a prayer closet sounds nice, but then over time we start worshiping the Lord and putting all these images up. But perhaps keep one wall blank if you have a prayer closet. Keep one wall completely blank, that you can have that. And it is not that we're emptying all our thoughts. We're not. We're making room for the Lord, inviting God in specifically, and filling our hearts and minds with the Word. So let us contemplate Him. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Summe glorioso Deus, illumina tenebras cordis mehi, et da mihi fidem rectum spem certum et caritatem perfectum. Domini ut faciam tuum sanctum et verax mandatum. Amen. Friends, this week we are looking at verses 25 and 26. Sorry, I'm looking at a camera of me, and so my hair is distracting me, and I'm apologizing for that now. I'll stop. Whew. And when they had heard this, the disciples wondered very much, saying, Who then can be saved? And Jesus, beholding, said to them, With men this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. what's jumping out to me is I feel that he's said that the disciples have said again and again after the teaching he gave earlier in the chapter on male and female and on marriage. They were like, who can do this? And then we had the little children come to him, and people are like, who should be doing this? And then the young man comes, and they're kind of like, ooh. It seems that people are asking the same question over and over again about the kingdom of heaven. We've been studying this for weeks now, and I've never had this thought, but it just seems like over and over again, they're asking who can be in the kingdom of heaven. So first they were asking about husbands and wives and what that relationship looked like. And Jesus is like, no, it should be male and female. God created them that way. And it was to be a sign of the kingdom of heaven. And he brings Moses into it and says how we have broken the kingdom of heaven. First in Genesis, then we had Moses, in the beginning. Then we had that. And then they were talking about marriage. And then we were talking about eunuchs. And they're still like, what? And right after the talk of eunuchs, then there's little children. And Jesus is saying, suffer the little children and forbid them not to come to me, for the kingdom of heaven is for such. So the kingdom of heaven is really the secret to understanding Matthew 19. It's really an essay on the kingdom of heaven. Beautiful. And then the young man came and he wanted to know. He said, how could I have life everlasting? But he was asking about how do I get into the kingdom of heaven? And so Jesus told him, you do the commandments. That's first. Then you sell all your belongings. That's a big act of trust. Leave everything, everyone behind and follow me. What a radical call. Jesus is telling us time and time again how to get into the kingdom of heaven. And then the disciples are again every time going like, wait, what? Like maybe some of them were in there for money or power. I don't know. But Jesus is letting them know at this point in time. No, it's the little children. It's the people who live out their vows. It is the male and female, that beautiful union in marriage. It is the people who have made themselves eunuchs for the kingdom. He's talking again and again and again about the kingdom. And so now oh my goodness, friends, when you're in that space, that is why we fill all that space up. We're trying to see the kingdom of heaven in our worship spaces, aren't we? And sometimes, maybe Vatican II people kind of did call this. Maybe sometimes we're so busy putting up images of the kingdom of heaven that we fail to see the kingdom of heaven. Now, am I saying go out and smash all your statues and things? 100% not. But they do have a place. And that place really, I do think, is a worship space. So you may have a worship space. One of the interesting things about the little chapel space I have over here, if you remember, I'll try and put a picture of it in here. Maybe I'll make it the thumbnail for this video. So if you saw that, it is an old jewelry box from the 70s. Could have been from the 60s. It was one that my dad had given my mom, and I restored it. I renovated it. I took out some of the shelves and things that I didn't need. I don't really have jewelry. And so I have it. The little drawers have things. There's one drawer for prayer cards, one for relics, and one for saints' medals. And I have a little statue of Mary and some other beautiful things in there. Yes, there's a crucifix I have hanging holy medals from. But if that gets to be too cluttered, I can close the doors, and I have some of my lighter chapel veils that I don't wear anymore, and I can put the chapel veil over it, and it's just me and that mystery. So yes, have all the beautiful statues and all the things that you need, but do we need to look at all of them at the same time? We're just not ready for that, perhaps, friends. Let's talk about in the end, instead of in the beginning. In the ending, we will be with God, who is immense light, beauty, goodness, truth. He is all. And so it's going to be a lot to take in, and it's impossible for us to know what that's like. So perhaps that's what we're trying to recreate over there with our kingdom of heaven. But we do also need time to focus on the word and to think about the sacrifice of Jesus. So sometimes we need to look at truth a little bit more than beauty, or we need to look at goodness a little bit more than beauty. But they do each have their place. And in the end, we'll be able to. God will have purified us so many times, so many bits, that we'll be able to behold him. We're not quite ready to take it all in at once yet. It can be a bit much for some of us. In the ending, it'll get there, and we'll trust the Lord. But sometimes we may need to step back just a little bit. So this teaching, which has never come out to me, let's see here what the little description of chapter 19 says in my Bible. It says, Christ declares matrimony to be indissoluble. He recommends the making of oneself a eunuch for the kingdom of heaven and parting with all things for him. He shows the danger of riches and the reward of leaving all to follow him. So they aren't saying that. That's me coming up with it. Matthew 19 is all about the kingdom of heaven and how, oh my goodness, friends, how poetic, because St. Francis of Assisi had kept going away to be a knight. He dreamed his whole life of being a knight. He sang the songs of the French troubadours, right? Of all that royalty and courtship. And he dreamed of that and dreamed of having a beautiful lady. And in the end, he ended up giving it all up for Lady Poverty. Wow, mind blown. And it's all why we're doing Matthew 19 is it is a part of the original, the earlier rule of St. Francis, and it is about seeking that kingdom of heaven. And we know St. Francis he set out to become a knight, and he ended up becoming a fool for Lady Poverty. So this, for me, is a beautiful, giant reflection. I don't know how it's affecting you. I'm sure you're coming up with something completely different. Why? Because you're different than me, and God speaks to each of us in our own ways, in ways that are going to speak to our heart. So I'm a secular Franciscan, and he's speaking to me using that imagery. How is he speaking to you, friends? Please put it in the live chat, in the comments below, whatever you've got. This is so wild. I love doing Lectio with you. If I have not thanked you recently, I thank you again. And when they had heard this, the disciples wondered very much, saying, "Who then can be saved?" And Jesus, beholding, said to them, wait, Jesus, beholding, what does that even mean? And Jesus, beholding. That's probably going to be I'm going to contemplate that until the next time we see each other. And Jesus, beholding, said to them, with men this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. And when they had heard this, the disciples wondered very much, saying, who then can be saved? And Jesus, beholding, said to them, with men this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. And when they had heard this, the disciples wondered very much, saying, who then can be saved? And Jesus, beholding, said to them, with men this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. Oh my goodness, friends. Benedicat tibi Dominus et custodiet te, ostendet Dominus faciam suum tibi, et misereatur tui, convertet Dominus voltum suum ad te, at Dominus bonus det tibi pacem, in nomine Patris et Filio et Spirit. Wait, that was wrong. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Bye, friends.